Am I the a-hole for no longer giving support to my wife's family after I became successful with my own company after they talked down about me? My early 30s wife, mid-20s, grew up in a fairly poor environment. Her grandpa had money, but her mom didn't, and her sister doesn't. My wife has an incredibly strong work ethic. She's probably more accurately defined as a workaholic. When I first met her, I was in trucking, making about $50,000 to $70,000 per year. Since then, I developed a niche in a specialty marketing field and became very good at it. All my friends encouraged me to start my own marketing company. My wife was fully supportive of this, even after we discussed the financial difficulties we would have for the first year or so, due to a limited budget. I made sure she knew that some months I might not receive a paycheck from the business. My salary is paid monthly. Her family, however, was not supportive. They accused me of neglecting my family, being lazy, not wanting to work, etc. They would constantly bring up the fact that I didn't have a job because I was always home, working remotely. She would defend me, but they would ignore it and continue to call me lazy and a deadbeat for putting my daughter in daycare while I worked from home. I was still driving a truck part-time to have a steady, reliable income, but it was only half of what I made on a good week. In the last year, however, I have grown my income from my business beyond what I was making in trucking, and I have very little overhead. Since we cut costs back when I first started, we realized a lot of the things we were paying for were unnecessary, or we found cheaper alternatives, so we never really added those expenses back. As a result, we now have significantly more money. I still drive a semi occasionally for a friend who owns his truck, mainly to keep my CDL active and stay knowledgeable in the industry as a fallback. Her family has taken note, and they are constantly asking to go out to eat with us, hang out with us, etc. Then get mad when I never pay for their meals, outings, vacations, etc. Aside from my own part of the tab, obviously. Looking back, I understand why they never had money. They were living well beyond their means. But if that makes them happy, then so be it. I let my wife do whatever she wants with her money, which sometimes includes buying things for her family, which I support her doing if that's how she wants to spend it. However, I make sure she knows I don't want a dime of my money going to her family, since they were very unsupportive of what led to our financial success, and even went so far as to talk down about me doing what ultimately made us successful. You are not obligated to play nice just because they want your money. I would, however, play nice if I wanted my partner to be happy. You can be polite without giving them anything, especially if they haven't apologized. I'm going with not the a-hole. My wife is definitely happy. She is content with our arrangement and has never complained about it. But recently her family has been putting pressure on her to make me loosen up and be part of the family more. Then this is a her problem, not a you problem. Tell her you will support her however you can. If she wants, you can talk to them directly and explain to their faces, kindly and respectfully, why you aren't giving them money. That may harm your relationship with them, but it will reduce the pressure to get you to loosen up. And if she says yes, be kind and respectful. Just point out that they've yet to say a single nice thing about you or your career. When you drove a truck, you were just a truck driver. When you started your own company, you were a lazy deadbeat who didn't have a job. As far as you can tell, they saw no good qualities in you. Only now that you make money do they suddenly want you around? Sorry, but if you're going to spend money entertaining people, it will be on those who believed in you from the start and showed encouragement rather than constant negativity, or on people who appreciate you for who you are as a person, which hasn't changed no matter what your occupation is. You respect them as your wife's parents, but after the way they've treated you, and made no effort to change that or correct it, they should expect to be treated accordingly. I'm curious as to what your wife says when you say you don't want a dime going to her family. That will tell you everything you need to know. Also, you are not the a-hole. She's fine with it. Occasionally, if I know there is something she really wants to get for her family, I'll compromise and pick up a bill or two on her side that she normally pays, so she has some extra money to spend on them. Not the a-hole, but don't take it out on any kids. I had an uncle who was in a similar situation to you and wouldn't pay for anything for anyone who put him down. And that trickled down to their kids. For example, he'd offer to take all the teens out for ice cream but wouldn't pay for theirs. It put a damper on his daughter's relationship with her cousins and his relationship with his nieces and nephews. I definitely don't. The kids and teens I take out all the time for events, pay for their sports gear, etc. Next story. Am I the a-hole for not letting my friends use my backyard for their wedding because they do not want me to bring a +1? Here is the situation. Last summer, I bought my grandparents' house. This house was the hangout spot for my friends and me throughout our childhood. This includes my friend Dave. The house has a sizable amount of land, which includes a lake and a gazebo. I was supposed to buy the house with my now ex-girlfriend, Leslie. But while going through the process of getting approved to buy, I found out that she had massive amounts of credit card and personal debt that she hid from me throughout our 4 years together. As a result, I decided to break up with her. That was about 6 months ago. I met Leslie because Dave's long-term girlfriend, Kim, is Leslie's cousin. Dave and Kim are engaged and set to get married in April. When I was buying the house, they asked if they could have the ceremony at the gazebo, which I agreed to. In December, I started dating again. Leslie has not taken this well at all. She thinks we are going to get back together and has tried multiple times to make that happen. I have told her in no uncertain terms that isn't happening. Dave and Kim have asked me not to bring a +1 to the wedding for Leslie's sake. I have told them that this request is ridiculous. This wedding is happening at my house, using my land, and I am not allowed to bring a date because of a crazy ex? If that is the case, then they need to find a new venue for the wedding. They are mad about this, given the short time frame before the wedding is supposed to happen. So we are at an impasse. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I have seen a few things brought up multiple times in the comments, so I will quickly address them here. 1. I am fully aware of the liability issues, which is why I purchased, and they reimbursed me for a special event insurance policy that will provide 100% coverage for any damages, claims, injuries, etc. to any of the property or persons up to $2 million. It was one of the first things we did after I agreed to have the event at my house. 2. The wedding will have a maximum of 75 guests. If everyone comes, 5 catering staff, and 5 security staff. The house has hosted events twice the size, and logistically it has been fine. On the property, there are 2 cottages, one with 1 bathroom and the other with 2 bathrooms. The only portion of my house that will not be locked during the wedding is the finished basement, which has 2 bathrooms. They want to tell you who you can have at your own home, and think it is fine. They're nuts. If they want to dictate guest rules, they should pay for the venue. He is being generous, and they're being entitled. Yeah, he is offering them a free wedding venue, and they're trying to control his personal life in return? That's not how favors work. Pull an Uno reverse. Tell them Leslie isn't allowed on your property, and watch their heads explode. The petty part of me did absolutely consider saying, well, Leslie cannot come to my house or on my land, so it shouldn't be a problem. This is the way. Agree not to bring a date. It's a small concession that actually protects your best interests. Whoever you brought would have the worst time navigating this ex-girlfriend drama. Instead, tell them that you are not comfortable having Leslie on your property and thank them for bringing this to your attention before the wedding. You had thought you could peacefully coexist with a wedding, but if bringing a date would cause problems, then they've opened your eyes to that not being the case. It's just better for everyone's mental health if she sits this one out. Feed them some BS about not wanting ex-girlfriend drama to take the spotlight away from them on their special day. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my brother's fiancé the real reason he won't let her invite her family to their wedding? My 29 male brother, 32 male, is engaged to his fiancée, 30 female, and their wedding is in a few months. Everything was going fine until she mentioned wanting to invite her side of the family. My brother immediately shut it down, saying it would ruin the wedding. She was devastated. For context, Her family is lower income, and she's the only one in her family who went to college and built a successful career. Our family is pretty well off, and my brother has always been obsessed with keeping up appearances. I thought he was just being shallow, but then I found out the real reason. A few weeks ago, at a family gathering, I overheard my brother talking to our parents. He admitted he doesn't want her family at the wedding because they're embarrassing and look like they came from a trailer park. He even joked that her dad looks like he crawled out of a Walmart clearance bin. I was disgusted. His fiancée later asked me if I knew why he was so against inviting her family. I tried to dodge the question, but she was genuinely heartbroken and kept pressing me. I finally told her the truth. She went silent, thanked me, and left. Now everything has exploded. She confronted him, called him classist, and is considering calling off the wedding. My brother is furious and says I ruined his life by meddling. Our parents are on his side, saying I should have kept my mouth shut. I feel like she had a right to know, but now I'm wondering, am I the a-hole for telling her? Nah, you did the right thing. She deserved to know before marrying someone who looks down on her family. Her brother wasn't just being shallow, he was straight up cruel, and that's a massive red flag. If he's ashamed of them now, imagine how he'd treat them, and her, in the long run. He ruined his own life by saying those things. You just gave her the truth. Honestly, the second he told her he didn't want her side, but wanted his side, she should have bailed. Not the a-hole. Your brother is, though. The things he said about his fiancé's family are beyond disrespectful. It's not just about the wedding, it's about his character. He's showing how little he values her and her family. She deserves someone who sees her for who she is and supports her, not someone who is embarrassed by her background. Honestly, you did a right thing telling her. She had every right to know what kind of person she's marrying before it's too late. This is such a big character flaw on the brother's part. Respect for her and her background should be the bare minimum in a relationship. Next story. Am I the a-hole? I got a warning at work because I tried to catch the person who kept stealing my lunch, and it turned out to be my manager. She got a reaction and had to go to the hospital. I work at a family-owned company and I'm also pregnant. I've been having issues with someone stealing my lunch. In the beginning, it wasn't as often. I just chalked it up to being an honest mistake. Someone could have confused my lunch with theirs. But nope, it just kept happening more and more. I started putting my name on it, writing passive-aggressive notes, but that didn't help. I would still find my lunchbox empty. Sometimes they would just take a few bites and leave the rest. Even my half-drunk drinks were finished off. They were relentless, and it would happen a couple of times a week. I was at my wit's end because 1. I'm extra hungry due to pregnancy. 2. I am on a really tight budget, so I can't afford to replace the food, meaning I would have to work on an empty stomach for my whole shift. This completely enraged me. I even cried a couple of times in the bathroom because of this. It didn't just happen to me, but it felt like I was being targeted a lot for some reason. I made a decoy lunch, loading it with cayenne pepper because that was the worst thing I had in my cabinet, and I didn't want to hurt them. I don't like spicy food, so I never really use it. I took the food to work the following day and put it in the fridge, but it was still there at the end of my shift, so I took it home and brought it back the next day. Sure enough, it was stolen. About an hour later, there was a commotion. The manager was sick and stuck in the toilet for a while. Her throat swelled up, and she even had to go to the hospital. Turned out she had an allergic reaction. When she came back, she blamed me because she obviously knew exactly whose food she ate. I told her it was her own fault for stealing other people's food. Even after telling my side of the story to her boss, I got a verbal warning, and apparently I got off lightly. Nothing happened to the manager. I don't understand how I'm the bad guy for messing with my own food, but a literal thief gets away with stealing. Not the a-hole. Your only mistake was being honest about your motives. Next time, you gotta pretend you wanted spicy food and didn't know anybody allergic would try to share it. Save your honesty for home. That's the frustrating part. It feels like the system rewards thieves while punishing the victim. If the manager had just respected boundaries, this wouldn't have happened. Fuming over this whole situation, not the a-hole. You know, ever since I became pregnant, I have been having these super hard cravings for cayenne pepper. When I was pregnant with my oldest, I drank homemade spicy Bloody Mary mix every day and ate whole pickled jalapenos straight from the Costco-sized jar. It's really not that wild, lol. My mom said a dog food bag smelled appetizing a few times. My dad drew the line there. He locked it up and fed the dog himself. Poor Sarah. It was only for 5 months though. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not giving my dad's widow/affair partner any of his estate and evicting her and my half-siblings from my childhood home? 5 years ago, my 25 female parents were still together when my father was caught having an affair with Jenna. Jenna confronted my mother and let her know that she was pregnant. My mother was devastated and chose to end herself. I was heartbroken, and I believe that in some way, my father was too. While I mostly blame him, the words Jenna said to my mother were cruel and, in my opinion, the main cause of her death. My father wanted to leave Jenna, but because she was pregnant, he married her instead. In my culture, women who are unmarried with children face significant stigma. They went on to have a second child together. I hadn't spoken to my father in the last 5 years, despite his many attempts. A large part of me has hated them both too much to reconcile. My father recently died in a car accident on his way home from work. I found out that he had never updated his will or estate. Everything was left to me, including his life insurance. Jenna tried to fight me in court, but my lawyer pointed out that she had an affair with my father while he was married. The judge ruled in my favor and shamed Jenna. Adultery is not taken kindly here, which is why the judge awarded her nothing. I had Jenna and her 2 children evicted from my childhood home. Jenna and her family have been furious with me. My father was a very wealthy man, and Jenna worked as a receptionist when they met. She now has no money to her name and lives with her mother. She believes I wronged her and my half-siblings. However, I do not consider them my family, and I resent them because they will always be her children. Am I the a-hole? Everyone I know is so divided. Consequences. Always so smug about it when they're up high, but somehow everybody owes them when they're low. The worst type of person. Not the a-hole OP. Consequences are right. Not the a-hole. Karma took a few years to show up, but boy did she come in with a vengeance. Jenna should have made sure he updated his will. Makes one wonder if he deliberately did not change it. Wondering that myself. I also wonder if the half-siblings were ever tested for their paternity. Almost sounds like some baby trapping went on, and OP mentioned the dad had regrets. There could be good reason for the dad not changing his will along with doing right by OP. Am I the a-hole for laughing when I saw my newborn niece and she's black? Controversial title, I know, but listen. I, 21 male, have a brother 32 male, who's married to my soon-to-be ex-sister-in-law, 27 female. I'm Korean American, and my grandfather still has our family genealogy dating back to our great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandparents, all of whom were Korean. Meanwhile, my sister-in-law and her family whom I've met are all white. I'm currently in college, so I wasn't home much, but of course I took a trip back home when my brother said his wife was in labor. I got there after my niece was born, and when I arrived, my parents and their in-laws were outside the room. The situation was very tense. So my dumbass, trying to lighten the mood, barged into the room with a "Ta-da, best uncle is here, where's my niece?" kind of entrance. My brother wasn't in the room like I expected, but then I saw a very beautiful baby who looked nothing like either my brother or his wife. Her skin was visibly darker, and her features were definitely not like those of a white or Asian baby. She didn't even look mixed, but she was adorable. I was stunned, flabbergasted, and so dumbfounded that I could only let out a laugh, before apologizing and awkwardly excusing myself from the room. For the record, I wasn't laughing at the baby, but at the situation I realized after seeing her. I know genetic mutations exist, but that only crossed my mind after I managed to process the situation. They did a DNA test, and sure enough, the baby isn't my brother's. What followed was a huge series of dramatic events. My brother filled me in after everything settled down. She did cheat on him, but it was a drunken mistake, and she swore she used contraception. He decided to get a divorce for obvious reasons, but my sister-in-law is still trying to win him back. When my brother cut off contact with her, she went on a rampage and started blowing up everyone else's phones, mine included. Other than begging for my brother, she keeps bringing up that she knows she's a garbage human being, but insists her baby doesn't deserve to be laughed at. I try to explain, but now I'm being labeled as racist. My brother says I should just apologize and move on, but I don't feel like apologizing again, but I'm all for moving on. Am I the a-hole? Should I apologize? Edit. I forgot to add a crucial detail. I asked my parents first in front of their in-laws, and no one said anything until my father told me to just see my sister-in-law, without giving me any explanation. I thought my supposed niece was born with a disability or deformity, or that the delivery had been very difficult. That's why I tried to lighten the mood and expected my brother to be there. Sorry, LMAO. Looks like it's time for me to go to bed. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. I wasn't laughing at your baby. I was laughing because in that moment I realized that, in your own words, you are a garbage human being. I am sorry if you thought I was laughing at the baby. I was actually laughing at you. Also, it's a pretty normal reaction to laugh in the face of awkwardness. I'm pretty sure scientists have studied it. Not the a-hole. She is grasping at straws. Lots of people laugh when they are nervous, and you can't always control when you laugh. You weren't laughing at the baby anyway. You were laughing at the knowledge that something big was about to go down. You can apologize if you want to, but there really isn't any reason to, unless you feel like it, because she isn't going to be your sister-in-law anymore, so you probably won't see much of her. 2. She got caught with her hand in a cookie jar, so to speak, which is actually tragically funny. Nervous laughter is honestly so embarrassing. I remember laughing when telling people that my grandfather died because I was so upset about it. But the vulnerability of telling people I was experiencing grief made me feel extremely uncomfortable. So instead of showing my grief in an appropriate way, I hysterically chuckled instead and looked like a huge a-hole who was laughing at an elderly person's death. Not the a-hole. You weren't laughing at the baby, you were laughing at the situation and the surprise. A simple statement that you think the baby is beautiful and that you are sorry for laughing when you first met would be fine. You were just surprised. Other than that, you hopefully won't ever need to see her again. I apologized immediately for laughing and explained that it was in no way directed at the baby before leaving the room. I also explained it again through text. I guess I should have added that I found her baby cute as well. My brother absolutely forbids me and everyone else in the family from meeting her, so I've got that part covered. Should I really apologize again? Not gonna lie, I also feel bitter because she cheated on my brother, which is why I feel reluctant to apologize once again when I've already done so. No, you already apologized in the moment. Time to block her since you won't be having a relationship with her in the future. Next story. Am I the a-hole for blowing up at my sick husband when he asked for help with our toddler? I plan on sending this post to my husband once the verdict is in, whichever way it goes, so I'll add as much of his perspective as I can. Our toddler was sick through the weekend. I was up with him one night from 12:15 to 2:45 and off and on the next night. I probably got 10 to 12 hours of broken sleep the entire weekend. Yesterday, my husband mentioned he was starting to feel a little sick. Last night, I went to bed early, hoping to catch up on rest. Throughout the night, my husband woke me up way more often than my toddler ever does, even on a bad night. Some of the times were not directly his fault, but other times, I felt like he was being inconsiderate. 1. He snored loudly in my ear. 2. He asked for another blanket because he had the chills. I told him it was at the foot of the bed. He asked for help and reminded me that he helps me when I'm sick, and that he'd still do the morning routine with our son. 3. He had a nightmare, and I had to shake him awake. Normal. 4. He whispered at Alexa to ask for the time. 5. He asked for another blanket. I gave him mine. 6. He made a phone call, in bed, and left a full-volume voicemail for his work to let them know he'd need to take a sick day. 7. At 5:30 in the morning, he woke me to ask if I could do the wake-up routine with our son. I do bedtime. He does wake up. At this point, I blew up. I expressed how mad I was that he had woken me up all night long, and now I had to wake up early to do what he said he'd still handle, all while I didn't get to stay home and catch up on sleep. He said I was in the wrong because marriage is in sickness and in health. I immediately got up to get ready. He said I didn't have to start getting ready so early. I told him yes, I did because I start work at 7:30. I barely make it to work on time when I wake up at 6. And now I had to unexpectedly skip my shower, get my toddler ready, prepare his food for the day, feed him breakfast, drop him off at daycare, and then take myself to work. I told him he was a grown man with a cold, that he robbed me of the rest I needed, and that I'd be sleeping on the couch tonight. At that point, I asked for space, and we haven't talked since. I was late for work, which is a big deal at my job. I might be the a-hole for blowing up at my husband when he asked for support during an unexpected illness. Am I the a-hole for being mad at my sick husband? Not the a-hole. It's one thing if you slept all night and he was up all night sick, then woke you up to ask you to handle the morning routine. It's another when he willfully kept you awake, waking you up for extra blankets, asking the time, and making a loud phone call is absolutely willful behavior. Your anger is valid. If this is a one-time thing, when he's better, circle back and have a discussion. If this is his typical man flu/cold behavior, he needs to stop it. Sleep deprivation is cruel. Not the a-hole 100%. How do you wake someone up to get a blanket that was at the foot of the bed and start making phone calls in bed while someone is sleeping? That is just rude. If he doesn't know where the blankets are in the home, why? Does he not live there? Asking Alexa what time it is, knowing his phone is right there, gets me more than the blankets, I think. It feels like he's mad that he's sick and is taking it out on her. I'm curious if that's their normal dynamic or what. Yeah, definitely, because Alexa doesn't whisper back. She tells the whole neighborhood. This guy doesn't know how lucky he is, because I would have kicked him to the couch about 3 days ago. His mother's couch. Not the a-hole. Being sick, working, and caring for a sick child is terrible. But your husband is an adult and needs to be somewhat self-sufficient and considerate. He can't help that he had a nightmare or snored, but waking you up for a blanket twice, asking for the time, and taking or making calls in the early hours from bed is incredibly self-centered. And he did not help during the weekend when toddler was sick. Next story. Am I the a-hole for choosing to buy concert tickets instead of using my money to host my son's first birthday? A 35 female had a baby, 7-month-old male last year. It was a rough pregnancy. I lost a parent due to a terminal illness while pregnant, struggled to complete postgrad, and then developed preeclampsia, requiring a C-section. During postpartum, I struggled with depression, anxiety, and, at times, due to sleep deprivation, hallucinations. I try to shoulder most of the child care while working from home, and my husband, 35 male, helps where he can. He doesn't experience the same sleepless nights I do, and doesn't handle the majority of childcare like I do, because he has a high-pressure job that involves performing intricate surgeries. As much as I love my son, I am exhausted and sad most of the time. I got help for my PPD, but some feelings just don't go away. I grieve the life I used to have, and nobody or nothing prepared me for how consuming parenting can be. I decided I really want to do something for myself and bought tickets to the concert of an artist I truly adore. I plan to finance the entire trip myself, traveling to the venue, purchasing tickets, etc. The concert also falls around the time my son turns 1. I decided not to host a party because I personally think he's too young to enjoy it, and it would just be a waste of money. My plan is to travel solo to this concert, let my husband take leave to care for our son, and then return home. In my eyes, this was an opportunity to splurge on myself for once, and if I wasn't hosting a first-year party for my son, that was totally fine. My husband is very supportive of this decision and already has his leave lined up. However, when I told my friends and family, I received a pretty adverse reaction. They've been commenting that I'm selfish and that my son deserves a big celebration to mark his first 365 days around the sun. They argue that even if he doesn't enjoy or remember his party, the photos would mean a lot to him in the future. I explained that I plan to have a small private celebration with just my husband and me, but everyone seems to be judging me so harshly that I'm starting to feel awful. Am I the a-hole? And more importantly, am I a bad mother? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. I think your plan to celebrate your little one with a small private party is just right. At 12 months, kids are a lot more aware, excited and engaged than they are at 7 months. But they still won't remember it. They may or may not appreciate seeing other people. I suspect a bit of a happy kerfuffle with just you and your husband will be more than enough. Maybe his first bite of cake and a few gifts to open. Take pics of the cuteness and move on. Your plan sounds great to me. Maybe stop sharing the plans with friends since you're just facing backlash. Loved ones telling you you're selfish is pretty wild to me. Do these people know you? Do they love and support you? Because shaming a mother for a choice like this is not what loving, supportive friends and family do. What they could do is ask if there's anything they can take off your plate, or if there's a way they can help make a bigger celebration work for you. Maybe by offering to bring decorations and help organize things. But standing back and insulting you for not going all out is infuriating. This is the thing. I am so tired of the expectation that people must do all this. Engagement parties, weddings, showers, kids' birthdays, etc. No one offers to help. They want you to do it their way, and if you don't, they torture you about it. They make the entire thing completely miserable and expect you to foot the bill to endure the misery so they can have Facebook photos to brag to their friends about. If the people around you can't be trusted to have nice things, we shouldn't give them nice things. Excuse my French, but you freaking go, girl. I've heard of some great first birthday ideas, but this is the best one. Your baby has everything he needs and wants. He doesn't care about a birthday party. The people who do care about the birthday party care about it for their own selfish reasons, so why listen to them? You deserve this, and you've done the work for the last 365 days, so go celebrate that. Not the a-hole. Totally not the a-hole. If those people want to host a party for your son, let them. Otherwise, you deserve a break, and it is no one else's business but yours and your husband's. The first year of motherhood can be hell, and if you can get away for a few days to find yourself again, you should absolutely do it. Cheers, and have a great time. Last story. Am I the a-hole for not saying hi to my dad's girlfriend? So, me, 14 female, and my dad, 44 male, were super close my entire life. I was the textbook daddy's girl, until about a year ago. For some backstory, my parents divorced 2 years ago after being together for 25 years. I later found out that my dad had been texting one of his co-workers, 34 female, for up to 3 hours a day. I thought it was weird but didn't think much of it. Then she started calling my dad and sending gifts to me and my brother. That's when my mom stepped in, which ultimately led to their divorce. For some reason, my dad denied everything. But surprise, just a couple of months after the divorce, he told me he was with that same coworker now. Understandably, I was pissed. But every time I told him it was too soon to be in a relationship, he ignored me and responded with, "You just don't want me to be happy." 6 months later, he announced that she was moving in. Again, I was pissed. I never liked her. My dad tried to convince me she had done nothing wrong. But in my mind, no woman with any self-respect would be messaging a married man for hours a day. To make things worse, while my mom was dealing with a brain bleed, my dad decided to move his girlfriend in. But that's a whole other story. So now I live with her half the time. I stayed in my room every time I was at my dad's house, keeping my door all the way closed. Apparently, she felt awful about everything, but I stood my ground and didn't interact with her. I do around 20 hours of dance a week, so I was able to avoid her most of the time, but weekends were the issue. One morning, I left my door open while I was on my phone. My dad's girlfriend walked by and said hi to me. I didn't respond, and she kept walking. Then my dad stormed into my room with a "we need to talk." At that point, I was so done. It turned into a screaming match. He called me narcissistic and childish, and I started crying and told him to get out of my room. Nothing got resolved, and it certainly didn't make me feel any differently about her. Now, I refuse to go to my dad's house at all, especially since I've been diagnosed with a heart condition. I'm perfectly content staying at my mom's full-time, but I miss what I used to have with my dad. So, am I the a-hole for not saying hi to my dad's girlfriend? Not the a-hole. Your adult dad wants you to act like an adult. Dude, you were 14 and dealing with a lot of changes in a very short time. Your mom's health, the shift in family dynamics, and all of that on top of being an early teen with all those stressors. You're not the a-hole for thinking badly about someone who played a role in breaking up a 25-year marriage. But let's also remember, you were on the phone when the girlfriend said hi. You were busy. Someone who was actually acting like an adult wouldn't have a bruised ego just because someone in another conversation didn't say hi in passing. All this to say, if you think older you will regret not reconnecting with your dad, go ahead and get that closure. But if you're not ready, take your time. Personally, I'd tell his girlfriend to screw off, but I've had to get stronger and more abrasive to keep people from hurting me. The strength is nice, but you shouldn't have to be that strong. The girlfriend wasn't the only one responsible for breaking up a marriage. This was 50-50 on your dad and his girlfriend. OP, not the a-hole. Actually, you have it backwards in one regard. You said, no woman with any self-respect would message a married man for 3 hours a day. What about a married man? It sounds like you're blaming her for your parents' divorce, but the person who destroyed the marriage was your father. A marriage is a commitment between two people. No one from the outside can break it up, unless one of those two lets them. Your father was the one who stepped outside of his marriage for this woman. And it could have been anyone. Now, I don't know where you're from, but in the US, you have the right to never say a single word to anyone for the rest of your life if you choose. So, you're free to do what you want. But you also have to deal with the consequences. The real question is, are those consequences worth it to you? I totally understand what you mean. I think I'm just still in denial over the whole thing. My family was so close for my whole life, I don't even know what happened.
Am I the a-hole for telling my mother-in-law I don't give a hoot what she or everyone thinks when she criticized how I spent Mother's Day? My relationship with mother-in-law has been complicated to say the least. I'm my husband's second wife. I married him when his kids were 7 and 5. His first wife died when they were 1 and 3. And her death was very hard on my husband and his oldest. I actually met him while he was still in grief counseling, and so were the kids. We built up a friendship, and later after we had dated a bit casually, we realized we had feelings for each other. It was a very rough transition. Not going to lie, the kids' maternal side were not pleased that he found someone while the kids were young, and I do believe they eventually influenced the relationship I now have with my stepchildren, who are 19 and 21 respectively. To them, I am their dad's wife. This is how they introduced me. This is how they have introduced me the whole way along. Although they didn't really introduce me the way at all as younger kids, it was more as they got older. There has always been a strain there. It's tough. It has made my relationship with my in-laws, my husband's parents and siblings, at times uncomfortable. They see it as I have been around since before they can remember, and with them not remembering their mom, I'm mom, or at least a mom type. The kids, despite my best efforts, have never embraced or truly accepted me into their lives. I think over the years they have accepted me into their dads, but it has spilled into how they see the children my husband and I have together. About 3 years ago, my stepchildren dug in their heels and refused to celebrate Mother's Day in any way with us. They always saw their maternal family, were always taken to their mom's grave, but even a dinner with me and the family was a very firm no. And after each one moved out, they just stopped talking on Mother's Day with us. This year, I took my kids to the beach for the day and had some good food and relaxed. My mother-in-law told me it was wrong to not even give my stepkids a chance to show up or call, that it looked bad. She thought I loved them and all this nonsense. She told me to think about how it must look to everybody else that I'm going off with just my bio kids and celebrating with them on Mother's Day. I told her it was my choice and I moved on. Then she brought it up again. Same response. The third time she brought it up, after my husband had even told her to leave it alone, I told her I did not give a flying cow what she or anybody else thought, and I am not going to be a glutton for punishment the rest of my life. She and the rest of my husband's family are outraged I said that to her, and told me it was uncalled for. My husband told me I could have said much worse. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. If your stepkids refuse to spend Mother's Day with you, what are you supposed to do? Forget you have your own kids and skip it? Nah, that's messed up. Also, this is not your fight. Your husband needs to handle everything with his family and his late wife's family from now on if they are going to be nasty to you. It's not your fault his first wife died, and they act as though he was supposed to be single the rest of his life after his first wife died. He mostly always did handle things with his late wife's family. I did try to be nice and just try to see that I wasn't here trying to raise their daughter, slash sister, slash granddaughter, slash aunt. But yeah, I knew my place with them a long time ago. For the maternal side of the family, they expected him to wait until the kids wouldn't have another mom-like person or even another mom. At least that's how it has always come across. It wasn't the act of moving on, it was the when. So, it seems like they expected him to not move on with his life until his youngest was 18, which would have been 17 years. That is absolutely ridiculous and wholly unfair to expect of anyone. Around that length of time. Maybe if the kids had been teens and less likely to see me as anything but Dad's wife. But they definitely appeared to want him to wait until it was next to impossible for a close parental bond to form between me and the kids, or whoever and the kids. Wow. It sucks that he didn't put them in their place early on. He controlled access to the kids. He could have solved this whole thing. He did. Then they sued and won grandparents' visitation, which came with a lot of things we were unable to control. And they won even though he hadn't officially severed contact with them. Not they ho. The stepkids haven't expressed interest in celebrating Mother's Day with you before. Why would they now? Considering it sounds like you raised them from pretty young, I find that attitude pretty disrespectful of them assuming you weren't a bad stepmother. That's between you and them. Your mother-in-law is an a-hole though. Not only has she and her family treated you poorly for years, she intruded where she had no right and kept pressing after both you and your husband told her to stop. It was past time to put your foot down, in my opinion. I have just grown to accept that they wanted what their maternal family told them about, the mom who gave birth to them and raised them until her unfortunate passing. And over the years, they believed it would be disrespectful or maybe even dishonoring her to accept me as anything other than the woman Dad is married to. At some point, you don't need to accept it even if you don't like it. Yeah, if she had said it once and left it there, it would be much easier. But she just had to keep pushing. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for accepting a Mother's Day gift from my stepkids? Plus little update. My husband and his ex divorced after husband's ex came out as a trans man. They have 2 kids together who were 7 and 9 at the time. Husband and I married when they were 10 and 12. We now have 2 children together as well who are 3 and 4. Stepkids are now 15 and 18. They have had a rough haul with husband's ex and came to live with us soon after we got married. Ex has been clear the kids are not to call him mom, so they now call him by his first name. He has also been in a series of relationships that have been hard for the kids. I have never asked or expected that they call me mom or see me as a maternal figure. However, this past Mother's Day, they asked if they could join us at dinner and had bought me a gift, a very lovely locket that says mother on it. Well, ex just learned about this and called me very angry. He says I am trying to displace him in his children's lives and that I should return the locket. I find the whole thing confusing as he has made it clear on multiple occasions he doesn't want to be their mother. I really don't want to do that as I think it would hurt the kids. So am I the a-hole for accepting the mother locket from my stepkids? Not the a-hole. That is such a lovely thing for them to do. You're not replacing him as a parent, but you are providing the mom role they clearly miss having with him. I have tried to help where I can. Truly. Like when stepdaughter needed her first bra. I knew that would be hard for X, and I also knew husband would have zero clue. So I took her shopping. Stuff like that. Girls need a female figure in their life to help with stuff like periods and bras. It's great that she feels comfortable with you. Not today, Hall. But I don't think it's got anything to do with their transparent. They're old enough and you've been part of their lives long enough that they can decide who they view as a mother figure. I'd say the same if their birther was still identifying as female. Exactly. Not today, Hall. They bought that for you because you were a mother figure to them. The ex seems to be jealous or insecure about it, but you shouldn't return it because of him. The kids will think that you don't want to be their mother. Not today, Hall. Sounds like the ex has lots of personal issues to deal with that they don't need to project onto you. You have been there for the kids. They've lived with you and you aren't erasing their bio mom. Update. First, thank you so much for all your kind words and encouragement. It really does mean a lot because I'm trying out here. So I called X because that's who I am. I started the conversation by letting X know that stepkids are amazing and smart and funny and headed to a lot of success. And X can take a lot of credit for that. X was absolutely their primary caregiver from birth until late elementary school. Those are important years and those are hard years. I am parenting 2 young children now and it is tough. And I'm doing it without having to struggle with/against my own identity at the same time. I think X did an amazing thing for nearly a decade. And whatever happened or happens after that doesn't erase X's influence and hard work. I also acknowledged to X that, as the parent of young children, I totally know that if in 10 years my kids are estranged from me, even if I have done something that justifies it, I would feel hurt and angry. It is easy to feel someone owes you if you change their diaper and wipes their noses consistently for years. And I got a laugh here, so that's good. I also told X I would be keeping the locket. Not to hurt X or displace X, but because I love the kids that we, for better or for worse, share now. I also told X I want X to be more open with husband and I about what we can do to support X's relationship with these young adults. But that support can't be at the expense of the kids' happiness, safety, or health. X wasn't necessarily happy with this answer, but seemed to understand better too. He said that he will always feel like I took over his life, but he thinks we can be civil. That is his right to think, and I hope that we can be more civil going forward. Oh, and since Mother's Day, stepdaughter has been calling me Mama D. I haven't stopped her, and if I am honest, it makes me rather happy. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for going to a Mother's Day lunch when I'm child-free? I, 23 female, was invited to a Mother's Day lunch by my childhood best friend, Haley, 24 female. Haley is hosting and paying for the lunch. Her kid is Didi, 3 female. I was confused since I have been openly child-free since I was 15. I felt weird intruding on a celebration that had nothing to do with me. I thought it was to babysit, but she said that wasn't the reason. For context, her devout family cut her off due to her pregnancy. So I was the only person there to help her with doctor appointments, errands, cleaning, etc. When Didi was born, I helped with anything she needed until she got her bearings. She doesn't need much help now, but I am still very involved. Haley texted, When I think of having and raising Didi, you always come to mind. You were always there. And if it weren't for you, I might have really messed up. I want you to be there. Mother's Day has always brought up very comfortable or unwanted comments towards me, so I stay out of the way. To have Haley include me in such a personal way meant a lot. I love Didi and was so honored. Skipped to the lunch date last Saturday. Sitting at the table was Haley, 2 co-workers of hers, Didi's nanny of 2 years, and me. A little into lunch, Haley said that her gym buddy was asking to join since her sitter canceled, so her plans fell through. We all said no problem. Gina shows up with her kid in tow and lunch starts up again. While we're talking, coworker 1 shows a gift she got from one of her kids, which sparks a conversation about fulfilling things their kids do. I commented at their stories, but didn't have my own, so I let them talk. Everyone at the table was aware I didn't have kids / was child-free, except for Gina. I didn't figure it would be noticeable if I was contributing to the conversation. I just loved being part of it and seeing the point of view of mothers. Gina must have noticed I hadn't added anything, so she asked me about my kids and said she noticed I was left out. I told her I don't have any kids to talk about, but she got wide-eyed and apologized for bringing up painful stuff. I quickly corrected her and said it wasn't anything painful. I was just child-free. She got quiet, and after a minute, asked Haley to head to the bathroom with her. They came back looking pissed, and when I texted Haley asking what's wrong, she said nothing. Eventually, Gina, angrily, asked why I was even here if I wasn't a mom. I explained Haley invited me, but Gina just shook her head and said it didn't matter. It was insulting that I was even here when I didn't respect and avoided motherhood. It got heated after Gina said a few more hurtful things to Haley and I, and she was told to leave. Once lunch was over, Haley started crying in the car because she'd been looking forward to this lunch for 2 weeks. I feel terrible. I knew how much this meant to her, and I didn't think my child-free stance would come off as hating motherhood. I really don't. I just don't want to be a mother myself. Should I just not accept this invite in the first place? Now for the top comments. Gina sounds absolutely awful. You did nothing wrong, not even in the slightest. Gina's an awful person not to be seen ever again. You should plan something special for Haley, since her very generous and lovely Mother's Day plans were ruined by no fault of yours or hers. She didn't deserve that. And you don't deserve to be attacked for your life choices, because there's nothing wrong with being child-free. Not day whole. Right? Imagine coming in, eating free food, then attacking someone on the basis of what they do with their own uterus. Even my cats are more polite than that while being fed. Not day whole. You were invited by Haley and she knew that you were child-free. Maybe if you had misrepresented your family or something, you would be at fault. But Haley invited you specifically because she felt that you were very close and had taken on an important role in her life that, to me at least, seems like almost a godmother to her child. Also, there's absolutely nothing wrong with not wanting kids. It's a personal choice that is no one else's business, and you never have to explain it to anyone. You seem like an amazing person and friend, and Haley is very lucky to have you. Thank you so much. Reddit is amazing. Not day hall. That lady is weird and had no right to dictate who your friend invited. She was a guest and acted ridiculous. I'm glad your friend stood up for you. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter that she doesn't have to forgive my wife? My 35 female daughter Amelia, female 12, has ulcerative colitis and her body has a talent for building antibodies against medicines. She's had UC for 2 years now and hasn't been able to stay on medicine for longer than 6 months. She built antibodies against the medicine she was on and is in a bad flare, so we've been in the hospital since Monday. Monday to Wednesday, my wife Jessica, 36 female, and I were both at the hospital and only left for food/clothes and never left her alone at the hospital. Being at the hospital alone terrifies her. Then on Thursday, Jessica didn't come after work because she was tired. We got into an argument about it, but she swore she'd be here yesterday. Amelia was scheduled to get an NG tube and PICC line yesterday and was scared and asked for both of us to be here. When she was FaceTiming Jessica, she promised Amelia that she'd be here in time. Then yesterday, when it was time to get the PICC line, Jessica still wasn't at the hospital. I checked Life 360 and saw that she was still at home. Amelia cried the entire time because her mom wasn't there. Then a few hours later, it was time for the NG tube. Jessica was still at home. Amelia sobbed and begged us to wait because she wanted her mom. She cried and fought so much that they had to wait until this morning to do it. I called Jessica last night after Amelia was in bed, argued again, and I told her to be here this morning. This morning they sedated Amelia and started to get everything ready for the NG tube, and Jessica was still at home. They ended up having to restrain Amelia because she was fighting so much. Jessica finally showed up 4 hours after the NG tube when Amelia was asleep. When Amelia woke up and saw Jessica there, she immediately told her to get out. Jessica left and came back a few hours later with bags of gifts for Amelia. She was again told to leave. Jessica asked if there was anything she could do to make her feel better, and Amelia said she'd feel better if she left her alone. I talked to Amelia, and told her that it's understandable that she's mad at Jessica and that she doesn't have to forgive her right away. She needs time to work through her feelings, and that's completely fine. Jessica texted her and asked what she could do to get her to forgive her, and Amelia texted her back and said, "Mommy said I don't have to forgive you." Now Jessica's mad that I'm not trying to convince Amelia to forgive her. Not today, Hall. You did a great job not invalidating your daughter's feelings. What's up with your wife, though? She forgot, and thinks that she can buy her daughter's forgiveness rather than acknowledge she messed up, and her daughter's hurt feelings are valid. I think she's having a really hard time coping with seeing her daughter so sick, going through painful procedures, has gone into avoidance mode and couldn't bring herself to walk out the door to go to the hospital. It happens. Everyone gets so focused on the sick child that they fail to look after each other or give themselves self-care, and sometimes people just break. Opie needs to sit down with her wife and get her to talk about how she's actually feeling, just in case this is what is happening. If it is, then Opie can mediate to explain to their daughter why mom didn't show up. If it isn't what happened, then it's a whole other conversation. Not an a-hole. And Jessica might not necessarily be an a-hole either. Everyone needs to remember that this is an ongoing condition, not a one-week fiasco that most parents might deal with when it comes to their children. Parents of chronic and serious medical conditions can suffer many physical and mental issues themselves as a result of caring for their child. This is not a normal situation, and people need to be careful passing judgment. Parents deal with exhaustion, stress, emotional torture, and are prone to psychiatric conditions that might not normally have reared their heads, as well as breakdowns. Amelia is going through hell and fighting for her life, but Amelia only has herself to focus on. The world doesn't stop because two people have a sick child. So all the outside pressures that everyone has to carry without the stress of a constant medical emergency is still on their shoulders. Opie's a very strong person and is handling this situation amazingly, but not everyone can be that strong. I know this isn't the place for suggestions, but if I was in this situation, I too would be furious, but I would demand my spouse to see a medical doctor, as well as a professional that can help with any psychological issues that are starting to burst through the seams. Info. What was Jessica doing at home? Why did she say she would be there but not show up until it was over? Yesterday, her excuse was that she forgot, and today it was that seeing people vomit makes her nauseous. Amelia throws up a lot after getting an NG tube.
Am I wrong for telling my friend that I think his girlfriend is about to leave him? Plus update. Original post. I, 30 female, am friends with Ruby, female 30, and Tom, male 31. We met at uni and were part of the same group of friends. They got together in our final year. Then after uni, Tom and I started work. Ruby did masters while working. Her and Tom moved in together. After masters, Ruby landed a very good job, and Tom decided to quit his. Apparently, she wasn't happy, but let it go. Ruby and I were best friends, but after graduation, she became boring. While me and Tom would have a drink or two in their garden, she would study or work, and we drifted apart. Recently, Ruby has been more distant. When I come over and Tom and I sit in the garden, she doesn't even join us, she does her own stuff. She barely acknowledges us, but Tom doesn't see an issue. I tried to tell him, but he said it's fine, at least she doesn't bother him while gaming anymore. She's lost a lot of weight lately. She's gained it because of her thyroid and has just been focusing on herself. I tried inviting her to have a drink with us, but she always refuses. Frankly, I think she's taken adulting way too seriously. Last Saturday, I was out with some friends and we're doing a pub crawl. At one, I noticed Ruby having a drink with her friends. I didn't even know she had any. And she was her old self, laughing, having fun, cracking jokes. She was the life of the party. I didn't know any of these people, and I suspected Tom didn't either. I texted Tom and he said he's busy with a game and we'll talk later. I couldn't let it go. She went outside with her friend and I followed them. It was crowded so she didn't notice me, and I kind of eavesdropped on them. I was lucky because they're talking about her plans, and it seems that she's planning on leaving Tom. That she's sick of him not working and ignoring her, but been stuck because he doesn't work. She saved money for herself and saved a few months' money for him, so when she leaves, he can have money to live off. I couldn't believe my ears. What a witch. She said she's got her ticket and house sorted, but she saw me before saying more. She looked at me with disgust, didn't even acknowledge me, and she switched to another language with her friend. I got a taxi and went straight to Tom's telling him what I heard. He told me to stop being silly. I told him that he should consider what to do so she stays, and he said she has no reason to leave. We played some games and got a bit more drunk. I stayed on their sofa and didn't know when Ruby came home. I was woken up by Ruby at 2 p.m. and she called me an asshole amongst other names, kicked me out of the house, and telling me to never come again. She was angry because Tom confronted her about leaving. She told me to not meddle, and I told her he has a right to know if she's going to leave and has a chance to make things right. Was I really in the wrong for telling him? I mean, we used to be friends, but I don't think I have any obligation to her, but I am not sure. Am I wrong for warning him? I thought he deserved that. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Congrats, you might have been the last straw that broke the relationship's back. She doesn't seem happy, and neither does Tom. Let the relationship end. And mind your business. It's bizarre you can't understand why she'd want to leave him. You're the idiot. Plus, she was going to pay for jobless Tom's expenses, rent, etc. for a few months. That lady is no witch. She is actually way nicer than any ex deserves. I have never heard of anyone making the independent choice to float their ex, who they share no kids with, after leaving. Ridiculous, and so are you, OP. You are the idiot. Oh heck no, she's a better person than I am. His butt would be on the street already. Or OP's couch. He's happy though, that's why I think he has a right to know. Edit, he said that the only issue they've ever had is her nagging him constantly, but that's been sorted and she stopped, and he's happier than ever. What does it change is that he knows. She was gonna tell him at some point. He wasn't gonna change her mind. You just made the situation worse. I thought he had a right to know to address any issues she may have and convince her to stay because he says he loves her and is very happy with her. He loves her because he gets to sit around and do nothing while she works. Why should she be miserable while he gets to do whatever he wants? He helps around the house. He suggested a child a few years back so he could be a stay-at-home dad, but she refused. So, he's been helping with chores. He's not just sitting around gaming. You're the idiot all the way. Meddling, she's too adult. She's a witch for planning to give him money to live on once she leaves. He plays video games and gets drunk while she works. I hope she leaves quickly to go live her adult life, and that you and Tom grow up. You're wrong, OP. Let's not forget the eavesdropping and following too. What is that about? I agree with above comments that she has feelings for Tom, but Tom is also a deadbeat. He just quit his job and has been living off Ruby. I don't blame Ruby for wanting to make a move. I agree she should have been more communicative, but maybe she was, and Tom just ignored it. And now for the update. Crap has hit the fan. Last night, Tom knocked on my door crying. She kicked him out. They were talking, and he was begging for her to stay. He offered to find a part-time job and do more around the house, but she wouldn't listen to him and didn't care that he wanted to try. She said she's leaving in 2 weeks' time. He asked where and if they could meet and work on things while leaving separately, but says she's moving abroad. She asked him to go and stay someplace else while she is packing, and he can move back in once she leaves. She told him she had money saved up for him, so he'll have time to find a job. He asked her if he could get them now, since he has to go someplace else to stay, and she said absolutely not. She also said that because of that, meaning him asking her, she wasn't going to give him money for 6 months as she initially planned, but only for 3 months because he only cares about money. So, he is now staying at mine because he doesn't have money to stay elsewhere for 2 weeks, and she wouldn't even give him a penny. He has his debit card. They had a joint account and she had a separate one, but she's transferred all but £100. That's all he has for 2 weeks. As you can see, she's not the saint you guys make her up to be. Tom is heartbroken, and all she cares is money and her move. She doesn't care how he feels or if he has a place to stay for the 2 weeks. He's happy though, that's why I think he has a right to know. Edit, he said that the only issue they've ever had is her nagging him constantly, but that's been sorted and she stopped and he's happier than ever. Laughing out loud. She stopped nagging because she decided she was 100% done and was just getting her ducks in a row. And apparently she's not a saint, even though she is going to give him enough money to survive for 3 months. She doesn't owe him any money at all. WTF. OP and Tom completely deserve each other as friends. They both think the poor girl should just shut up and pay for everything, do everything, because Tom is happy. How nice for Tom lol. The ex-girlfriend is well rid of both of them. I really kind of love how OP thinks the update made Ruby look worse in any way. Bless her little heart. The only problem was her nagging. Oh wow. No, the only problem he had was her nagging. OP and his bestie are perfect for each. They both have their heads nestled firmly up their butts. But that's been sorted and she stopped and he's happier than ever. A textbook case of walkaway wife right here. She didn't stop being unhappy. She just saw that it was useless to spend her time and energy trying to get him to be better, and she threw the towel in and turned her attention to preparing to leave. Now he's desperate to get her back, and she's already mourned the old relationship and she's ready to move on. Too little too late, bud. As soon as I heard that she stopped nagging, I thought, oh my god, I've never seen anyone breaking up with a slacker boyfriend with this much consideration. And OP can't even see how biased her opinion is. After girlfriend confronted OP about spilling the beans and pushing up everyone's timeline, if I was the girlfriend, I would just tell OP, he's your problem now. I'm no longer giving him money to support himself. You want him to be happy, you take care of him. Next update, OP and Tom are now a couple. Then OP 1 year from now. I take back everything I said about Ruby. I need to get this guy gone. Now for the second story. Update, am I wrong for refusing to divorce my husband? Original post. I, 30 female, met my husband Dave, 32 male, when we were little. He's been my best friend since we were 10. We were raised in very conservative Christian families in the Bible Belt. We followed the script expected of us, dated in high school, engaged in college, married after his graduation, and kids after I established a career. Kids are 5 and 3. We've been married 10 years. We separated but stayed legally married 3.5 years ago because I finally admitted to him and myself that I'm a lesbian. I thought that I could fake it till I make it, but I just couldn't do it anymore. It was strained for a while and we continued couples therapy. Ultimately, we both wanted to do the best for our kids. For us, that meant continuing to live together. He lives in the apartment above our detached garage because neither of us wanted to be single parents. Eventually, we both started dating other people, and I met my girlfriend Krista about 1.5 years ago. She knew I had kids in an unconventional co-parenting arrangement upfront, and I told her I was still legally married after 6 months of us dating. She had been fine with our living in co-parenting style prior to this, but was less than thrilled by my lack of official divorce. She asked if divorce was eventual, and I told her yes. Dave and I agreed we'd divorce when it no longer was mutually beneficial to remain married, like having a new potential spouse. The longer Krista and I were together, the more my being married bothered her. She feels remaining married symbolizes I'm subconsciously clinging to my straight identity and is a barrier to moving on with my life, which I mildly disagree with but understand. She does not want to get married and had voiced the opinion that it was just a piece of paper, so I'm surprised it's become such a big deal. I agreed 4 months ago that I would bring it up with Dave and set a timeline for divorce by the end of this year to make her happy. But 2 months ago, Dave's company downsized his job, and a week later, he found out his increasing fatigue and illness was aggressive leukemia. He's undergoing treatment that is estimated to be 10% effective in cases like his, and they told him to consider that this might be terminal. If the treatment fails, they've given him 6 months to a year. For Krista, this changes nothing. But for me, divorcing Dave now would be unconscionable and would make what is potentially his final months even harder than they have to be. Whether she likes it or not, he's the father of my children and my oldest friend, so to force the issue while he's fighting for his life would be incredibly selfish and damaging to both him and our kids. She's telling me that not only am I regressing into denial about my sexuality by refusing to bring it up again, but also that I'm already a selfish idiot by leading her on, and that I want the best of both worlds by remaining married to a man while continuing to date a woman. Now for the top comments before reading the update. I am sorry you're going through that. I understand what you wanted in the beginning, but now you are just looking after Dave. I understand where Krista is coming from. You haven't given up your straight relationship yet, and that is frustrating for her. But now I don't think it's about the relationship, it's about your friendship. I am sure others will disagree, but you are likely making Dave's life better at the probable end. I would hope that Krista would be able to understand what you are hoping to do in this scenario. Have you explained to her? I mean, in reality, can you really argue that you have remained married at this point? You guys lead separate lives and are actively dating. At this point, to me, it really is just a piece of paper. I suppose if you still live with him, it's easier to argue, but either way, I don't see the problem. But that's me. Anyways, I hope you figure something out. Best of luck to Dave. I've tried explaining, and she's insisting that the agreement I made with her is more important. She said that if Dave is really okay with my lifestyle like he says, it won't matter to him that we get divorced, and it definitely shouldn't matter to me. Not wrong, it doesn't make sense at this point to get divorced. With all due respect, if he's coming to the end of the road, why not just wait? I'm so sorry if this sounds insensitive, I don't mean it to be. If he makes the recovery, then I'd bring it up, but until then, it's just a matter of time. He doesn't deserve the added stress from his best friend during these more trying last months or year. Your girlfriend needs to respect your family. Thank you, that's how I've felt about it. And you're not insensitive, it's pragmatic. But she's worked it all up to be this big psychological thing. Like, if I don't get the divorce before he passes away, I'll always have some lingering doubt that I really meant our separation. I forget exactly how she phrased it, but I took her words to mean that insisting on a divorce is confirming my new sexuality. Not insisting signifies I'm not really serious or committed to being a lesbian for life. And now for the update. First off, I know this isn't a support sub, and I didn't expect for it to be, but it kinda turned out that way. And I appreciate you all so much. Thank you. I received the most helpful, constructive feedback I've ever gotten in my entire life from this sub. As far as the issue at hand in my last post, I feel confident that I'm doing the right thing by not asking Dave for a divorce. Krista still disagrees, damn near violently. As such, she is no longer my girlfriend. I tried to have a calm adult conversation with her about it the night after my original post. Emphasis on tried. She was immediately aggravated and defensive. Told me that unless the next words out of my mouth involved signing divorce papers, we had nothing to talk about. I asked her why it bothered her so much, and it turned into an argument no matter how calmly I tried to remain. Ultimately, she admitted in a fit of rage that she felt people who stayed friends with their exes are psychologically damaged and guaranteed to cheat. When I asked if she knew my situation and felt that way, why did she press me for a relationship that she originally said she never wanted? She said that she assumed Dave would snap and do something that either was awful or that she could convince me was awful at some point. It then came out in our argument that she was pushing so hard on the divorce issue now to intentionally create tension and shatter Dave and I's care for each other because, again in her opinion, it's completely unnatural. That was it. I told her I was done, and I didn't need a heartless, selfish, insecure, jealousy-riddled piece of trash like her in my life or around my kids. The rest of it after that was just immature on both of our parts, with us both yelling insults at each other while she threw stuff everywhere. Clothes, blankets, couch cushions, looking for things she'd brought to the house and left over the last year. The kids weren't there, thank God. I had the foresight to see if Dave would have the kids for a sleepover in his apartment. I'm okay, I think, grieving a bit, which feels stupid considering everything. But I feel like I had a rotten tooth for so long. I didn't realize how much pain and pressure it was causing me until I yanked it out. Based on your original post, husband is dying. Your kids are about to lose their dad. You are about to lose, sexual orientation aside, someone you've built a life with. Krista does not register any of this as important. Think about that. She wants you to leave a family about to be plunged into a great deal of grief. This is not a person you want around your kids. 100% agree. The sheer toxicity of this person is astounding, considering even if you had gotten a divorce prior. Your husband or ex would be in your life no matter what because you have children together. You made the right choice for both of you and have a healthy co-parenting method. Not many can do that. There is clearly something wrong with her and her thought process, to put it nicely. You're still not wrong, and I'm glad you got out of that relationship. There's absolutely nothing unnatural about exes staying friends if things ended on good enough terms, especially if kids are involved. That kind of absolutist thinking is super toxic. You're a good person for sticking by your husband through all of this, and your kids will think of you very highly for doing the right thing here. Best of luck to you and your family. It sounds like an incredibly tough situation, but you sound like a great person, and I'm sure you'll be a wonderful presence in your husband's life during this upsetting time. Also, look into those books called A Father's Legacy, or something along those lines, for your husband. He can fill them out and leave them for your kids once he's gone. Speaking from experience, getting a book full of anecdotes and advice from my father after he passed didn't make the situation even close to okay, but it really helped a lot, and I still turn to that book all the time when I miss him.